Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yuzrul, the game is World of Warships. Welcome to North in its winter coat, welcome to Domination and a Random Battle, and welcome to, well, me. This is one of my games. I'm in the Tier 9 British cruiser, the Neptune. This is actually one of the paper ships in the British line. She was designed initially as a light anti-air cruiser similar to the Atlanta, but when Andrew Cunningham took over as First Sea Lord midway through the Second World War, he took a look at the design, said no thank you, and instead ordered an enlarged and improved version of the Tier 8 cruiser, the Edinburgh, Town Class technically, as well as the Tier 7 Premium, the Belfast, again, Town Class cruiser, admittedly one of the subtypes. The end result was, well, the Neptune, and she never saw service. The war ended before they could be built, and after the war, Britain was basically broke, so even if we needed new light cruisers, frankly, we couldn't have afforded to build them. We had other things to rebuild, like infrastructure, cities, the country, little things like that, minor details. Weapons really weren't a priority. Running down to sea to start with, backing up Yuri first in the gearing. We're going to be seeing quite a bit of him, and I'm going to owe him a bit of an apology later on for reasons that, well, you'll see in the game. I'm hoping it all polished out, but probably did. I covered the repair bill, certainly. First target of the day is Uttar in the Iowa, although not actually a target. He's in range, but I don't want to open up just yet. I'm sailing about 45 degrees onto him, and, well, that's an Iowa, 16-inch guns into a Neptune's broadside. Angling really ain't going to help all that much, and I'm pretty sure he overmatches my bow. We've also picked up Steve R-76 in the enemy Neptune, and he's closing down to 12 kilometers. Yuri is actually the one who's spotting him, which gives me enough warning to hit the brakes, turn to port to dump some speed, and with about 500 meters to spare, I pop my smokescreen, disappear, and fire off my first broadside. Yuri first picks that moment to pop his smoke as well, so we've temporarily got no spotting on this guy. First salvo comes down, unfortunately 5 out of the 6 bounce. Second salvo was fired blind and I misjudged the range, so that drops into the water. Third shot was fired off a momentary contact, so get a few more hits from there, in fact 6 penetrations. And salvo number 4, again, fired blind, estimating the turn and getting it horribly wrong. Salvo number 5 comes down, and now we've got solid spotting thanks to you again, but Steve R has turned and broken away, which means he has dumped his torpedoes, and that's a Neptune. One of the 2 big improvements over the Edinburgh at Tier 8 is that instead of 3 torpedo tubes aside, the Neptune packs 8. And those are 10-kilometer range torpedoes, so yeah, we were very definitely within reach of his fish at this point. Steve disappears into his own smoke cloud, and, well, we're not going to find him, so with nothing to shoot at and probable torpedoes, yep, there we go. Hydro picked them up with just enough warning for both Yuri and myself to step on the gas and get out there. Yuri pulls a little bit of high-angle torpedo beat, slips between the salvo. I'm comfortably gone long before they get to the smoke, and Steve is denied his revenge. Point C is ours, therefore. The enemy have been met and sent packing, so now it's round to point D, because, well, that's where we saw them going. And this is where Oxo, Gabriel, and Flet 29 make their entrance. Oxo is in the Z-23, the German destroyer. Flet's actually behind us in the Zhao, the Tier 10 Japanese fire starter. We pick up Attar again in the Iowa, but more importantly, we pick up Naiad 44 in the New Orleans. Chances are he's the only ship on the enemy team with radar, although he hasn't popped it as yet. Although we can't really have him take the chance, so broadside away. Just as we pass through the gap, get a brief solution, 4,000 damage. Of course, New Orleans doesn't have repair party, so every little helps, to borrow the phrase. And Oxo is doing what he can, but he is taking a serious pounding from Naiad, who is barreling into the smoke. He's also getting brassed up by the Iowa as well, so he is in a certain amount of trouble, and woof, he was lucky not to get deleted by that. That was the Iowa's main battery coming down. We pick up Naiad as we come around the corner. He gets a sensor detection. I suspect that was radar, but luckily, before Attar can get his barrels round and locked on, because yeah, that would have hurt, we managed to put him down. Flet 29 getting the killing shot. Duck back in to Oxo Gabriel's smoke. Very obliging of you to lay that, sir. And hopefully we can get some nice, easy superstructure abuse in on Attar. 10 kilometers range, nice and secure. Oxo sadly burns down from Naiad, and oh, of course, that was a German destroyer, wasn't it? It's health conscious. Their smoke only lasts a minute and a quarter at best, so, help. I'm broadside on to an Iowa at less than 8 kilometers, and, well, he's not looking my... Oh, wait, no, he is looking my way. Priority target has just kicked up to 2, and a wild hippo has just appeared. Yuri, I really need to borrow your smoke. Help, help, help. Whew. Lucky not to eat at least one citadel there. Dive into the smoke cloud, and then I kind of forget that Yuri is in front of me. I'm more concerned about the wild hippo, and I accidentally smack his forward turrets. Sorry. Torpedo clonks the Iowa, and you'll notice that I'm not firing into the hippo's belt. I'm firing into his upper hull and his superstructure. The 6-inch AP is pretty decent, but the fast fuse that it has means you can almost treat it like a armor-piercing high-explosive round, which technically it is. Yuri's stereo fails him. I can only assume I hit that as well, I'm so sorry. And with the Iowa temporarily not a concern, it's time to go one-on-one with Steve R again. He's bow on, so the armor piercing's not really going to help me. We break contact. He pops his smoke. Now, the last he saw of me, I was turning port into the left-hand channel. Fake right. And then I have a sudden thought. My port tubes are still reloading, so ideally I want my starboard tubes facing him. He can't see this maneuver, so I'm safe to do it. Hard a port. Faked right, and then switched back left. Now, we know Steve is manoeuvring a little. C has gone uncontested again, so he's probably backed up. Crank the starboard turrets round. I can afford not to blow this too early. Pop the hydro, and hello, cutie. Thank you so much for turning. 5 citadels, 17,000 damage off the third broadside, and the second one puts him down, and his torpedoes are going... I'm not sure. I think he assumed I would have gone through the left channel and then turned starboard to present broadside. So, 90,000 damage, 2 kills, 5 citadels, and 1 slightly dinged German destroyer whose bar tab I'm going to have to pay later and who's detecting me. Okay, it was just a brief contact. There it is again. Nothing on the map, so there's got to be something lurking within 10 kilometers, probably a destroyer. And now I've got something locking onto me with priority targets. So dive into Steve's smoke. Yes, I'm a filthy, filthy squatter, but he's not using it anymore. Eat some low caliber high explosive. And pop a repair party just a... Oh, there you are. Hello, Tovarish. If you wouldn't mind just holding still for a second... A bit longer than that. Okay, so we've got triple tubes. Steve's smoke runs out. Luckily, my own launcher is back, so I can very briefly duck into cover. Unfortunately, I've somewhat overextended here, which means that I've got no spotting on anything that's actually a threat to me, and I've got to content myself with brassing up this fairly angled armorgy. Which means that even firing into superstructure and upper hull, in fact I'm clonking some rounds off the sides of his turrets there, I'm not getting the greatest of results. You can see I'm trying to hit his pagoda mast, and okay, Japanese battleship, the superstructure's a pretty generous target, and oof, yeah, that wasn't too bad. But even then, I'm not getting brilliant results, but it's adding up over time. Sheer rectifiers, we get Ooh, I'll take that instead. Yuri first to the rescue again, as he charges through the smoke, provides some spotting, and all of a sudden, I can see a hell of a lot more in the way of targets, but I want this Fletcher dead. Can you spot my mistake yet, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go to the external camera for a second, as the Fletcher finally bites it. So, I'm in a smoke cloud. In fact, I'm sitting in 2 smoke clouds, both Yuri's final contribution. Thank you so much, sir. I still owe you for that 3,000 damage in the turret. And, oh yeah, I'm sitting stationary in a smoke cloud. Bugger. Okay, well, that hurt. and there's our likely culprit, the Zhao at 5 kilometers with the F3 torpedoes. I do manage to punish him for going broadside to get his torpedo shots, however, but, well, the damage is done. I'm suddenly on half health. I managed to fix the worst of it and stop the flooding. Lock onto the Montana for a second, torpedoes into single shot mode, and again, basically empty the tubes, but here comes the second wave of F3s. Power, more power, I need acceleration. Ouch! Yeah, this was a good game, right up to the moment that I screwed it up. 122,000 damage, 3 kills, citadels, 2 triple shots come in. That will be from one of the destroyers, but the damage is done. I've got a minute on the flooding, 3 seconds on the damage control. It's not quite going to be enough, and the damage control isn't quite there in time. Maybe I'd button mashed a bit faster, but, well, I didn't. I was more concerned with getting that final salvo weight into the Montana for 165,000. Single shot is nasty if you're trying to go bow on to a smoke cloud that you suspect has got a British cruiser in it. You are going to eat far more torpedoes than you think you would, unless you start jinking. However, Flet 29 has managed to arrive on the scene, and, well, he's got F3s as well. So, 10 fish in the water, out go the murder fish, and is he going to get the Montana? Of course he is. At that kind of range against a US battleship, thank you so very much. Western flank has pretty much folded, which leaves Flet and Altail on the friendly Iowa facing, well, it was Flet 29, but he headbutted a torpedo, so now he's dead. That leaves Altaristu on the 2v1. Okay, he's on the wrong end of it, but we know the Zhao's tubes are probably empty, and if nothing else, he's out of range. Maybe. 2 kilometers, 8.8, yeah. It's an extreme range shot for Alblator's F3 torpedoes, and he's still got to reload those quintuple tubes, so they take a while to come back. So Altaristu can focus down on the Ognivoy, and really at this point, it's more bookkeeping than anything else. We are some 500 points up, we're 3 ships up, and we're 3 points to 1 up. So, yeah, this game's pretty much in the bag. Alblator, trying his best, gets a solid broadside in, but most of it bounces off the Iowa's hull. Stern guns fire from the Iowa. Unfortunately, all they do is rearrange the geography. Not much to see there. Final cap goes down, and it's now 4-0. Yep, there's really nothing that the enemy can do about this, unless one of them plans to pull an absolute monster reverse, and here come the F3's torpedoes. But Altaristu smelt torpedoes, and, well, F3s are murderfish, but they're rather short-lived murderfish. So, no snack for you. You caught me, but you're not going to catch the Iowa. Unfortunately, then Alblator pops out in front of the Iowa, and, well, the Iowa is, suffice to say, a little bit narked, aiming at the cruiser and, well, wants some revenge. And 16-inch guns, well, okay. He was angled, but didn't care too much. Got probably 1 decent hit there, stripped off another 3,000 health. Zhao has repair party, but that was a penetrating hit, so he can only fix 10% of it. Doesn't matter though, the game is over. Looking at the scoreboard, what jumps out at me is Yuri First's position. He got 1,448 base experience, and if you strip out the win rate, that would put him 3rd on the enemy team. However, he only came in 6th on ours. Part of this, of course, might be that the North Carolina, the Iowa, the Tashkent just had absolute stormers as well. Certainly the Arpeggio Takar must have had a pretty decent one to come in 2nd when he's bottom of the matchmaking. But at the same time, I can't help but feel that he deserved to come in a bit higher than he actually did, because he basically enabled me for most of that battle. He provided the spotting going into point C that let me get those first cheap broadsides in at Steve R's Neptune. He provided the smoke cover at D that let me duck away from the enemy Iowa of Uttar and meant I only took that one volley of 16-inch fire that I was, well, basically I was lucky and Uttar aimed a bit too high. And of course, that same smoke cloud let me duck away from the hipper and get into position to kill it later on without having to take too much damage in return. Right at the end, he also provided that final smoke cloud that I was abusing to engage the Montana and, to a lesser extent, the Zhao. So, 1448 XP, bear in mind that he capped. I'm not entirely sure how much damage he did. I can't help but think he deserved a bit more than he actually got, and I'm not talking about the 3000 damage and turret disablement I did to him by accident. Especially with the removal of open water stealth fire, I'm wondering if Wargaming need to have a look at the teamwork bonuses that destroyers get, things like spotting, and also to see if there's some way of giving credit for damage done by other ships that are using your smoke, or at least that are in your smoke when they do it, because that's turning into a fairly large part of destroyer gameplay, particularly the US destroyers, who get very, very good smoke. In fact, they get pretty much the best smoke in the game from a team played standpoint. Doubly so, by the way, if you pull out that new smoke gen moderator, at which point it's basically weed for days, man. Weed for days. As for me, well, okay, 2,200 base XP is pretty decent, but it could have been so much better. That's the frustrating thing. Right at the end there, okay, I was overextended. I had Montana bearing down on me. I had the Zhao of Albertor eyeing me up as well. And if we flick over to the damage breakdown screen, you can see exactly how bad that mistake I made right at the end was. I took 11,500 damage from artillery. I only ate 23 shells over the course of the barrel. Barrel? Course of the barrel? Course of the battle. It is late. Words is hard. But 45,000 damage off 4 torpedo hits in a light cruiser, ye gods! That is what you get for sitting still in smoke, ladies and gentlemen, an absolute paddling. The 8,000 flooding damage, well, the only reason that wasn't higher was because I ran out of hit points and sank, and was a little slow on the damage control key. It came back about half a second beforehand. But if I'd just been rocking backwards and forth in that smoke cloud, okay, maybe I'd have eaten 1 torpedo. Those F3s can be pretty hard to dodge, but 1 torpedo against 4. Damage control would have contained the initial flooding, and I would have been in a much better position. I'd still have had a Montana bearing down on me, but he'd just eaten 4 torpedoes straight into his bow. He was getting close, and my portside launchers had come back. I could maybe have slammed the helm hard over to starboard, kicked around the 60 degrees or so, and then stuffed another 8 torpedoes into him at point-blank range. It would have been messy. I'd have eaten his forward batteries almost certainly, and the Zhao would probably still have finished me off, but it would have been that bit more damage, and it would have been a 4th kill. And you never know, I might have gotten lucky. Certainly RNGesus was riding with me at various points in that game, but maybe I could have taken the Zhao. I could certainly have worked him over a bit more than I did. As for my own damage, well, needless to say, 2/3 of it came off the main battery. Those fast-fused armour-piercing shells, 232 hits off 501 shells fired. So just under 50% accuracy there. Again, something about the British cruisers that doesn't really apply to a lot of other ships. You're actually often better off going for superstructure rather than main belt, unless you are very close and have a very good angle. Witness that poor sodding Neptune that I murdered in the latter part of the game, Steve R. 1976. What was it, 5 citadels in 1 broadside? Okay, British light cruiser, I don't want to say they're lewd, but they do like it in the citadel if they flash even a bit of broadside at you. But the armour key? Okay, that's as bad as it ever gets when you're going for superstructure abuse against a battleship, and I still did 15,000 damage to him in the space of, 2 or 3 minutes? And there wasn't much he could do in return. Okay, he was distracted. 11,000 into the New Orleans, that was hitting cruiser hull, and 22,000 into the Iowa. So, okay, some of that came off the torpedo that hit him, but another good 10, 12,000 came off the artillery, Again, 17,000 into the hipper, hitting upper hull, hitting superstructure, not even trying for the main belt. There's no point hunting for citadels if you know there's no way you're going to get them. Secondary battery, honestly, 66 shell side, I didn't even notice that was going. And one flooding on the Iowa, but no damage because he immediately controlled it. Good reflexes there. Certainly better than mine right at the end. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Usual. That has been a little runaround in the frankly just a bit monstrous on a good day Tier 9 British cruiser, the Neptune. Certainly that is worth suffering through the lower tier British cruisers for. The line starts getting tolerable at Leander. The good times begin with Fiji and Edinburgh. By the time you're up to Neptune with dual-purpose guns and a pretty solid torpedo fit, ooh, the British cruisers turn into absolute monsters. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, farewell.